Over the past few days, we have been providing comprehensive coverage of IndusInd Bank, addressing key questions raised by investors. Now, sources have told NDTV Profit exclusively that market regulator SEBI has taken note of the situation and is likely to investigate the underreporting of losses stemming from the bank's derivative trades. Joining us now is my colleague Shrimi, who will share insights from her sources. Shrimi, over to you. NDTV Profit has been comprehensively covering this story for the last 3 days, and now we understand that SEBI is taking notice of the same.
Yeah, so two important aspects, Sanjana, which SEBI is looking at this point of time. One is with respect to the understatement of losses from its derivative trades. And second aspect is the potential insider trading activities. So on the first point, what sources are telling us is that, the bank failed to properly, account for the mark-to-market losses on its derivative position, and suggesting that there are improper accounting practices. It's just not misreporting, and if there are misreporting, there are no disclosure about that, and that could lead to straight violation of disclosure and listing regulation of SEBI. Second important aspect what SEBI may look into, since it's starting to have its initial investigation in the case, is about whether the information which was there with certain insider of the IndusInd Bank has used those information and square off their position, and whether there are some transaction happened based on that non-public information is what SEBI may look into. And that is, if that is the case, it's again the violation of SEBI's fraudulent and unfair trade practices regulation. So on these two aspects, SEBI may start its initial investigation, and what we are also learning at this point of time, that SEBI is seeking more information on the trades and the all the transaction which has happened from the exchanges, both NSE and BSE, and in fact based on those data it may formally launch the investigation, is what sources indicating us at this point of time. And we reached out to SEBI for their comment, and we yet to get the reply from the regulator.
So much for that update. A two-pronged information coming in from the sources. Let me quickly go across to my colleague Hersh, who actually provided that in-depth insight just yesterday on the channel, talking about, and really all of us wondering whether the IndusInd management was actually in the know, considering we saw the CEO, we saw the deputy CEO, Hersh, actually sell 80% of their shareholding, let's remember, when it was at its peak. And now what Shrimi actually is bringing in is almost like a corroboration of what we have been contemplating the past 2 days.
Well, no surprise, essentially when you do things like this and you're a Nifty 50 company, and I just want to roll it back maybe 2 to 3 quarters, there's been consistent misrepresentation in terms of commentary, even with regard to the business. Now, maybe SEBI is not able to pull them up with regard to the business, but it's been sustained business weakness since Q2. And it just so happens that just prior to Q1 results, the management, the key managerial people, the CEO, deputy CEO, who ought to be in the know, have sold out 80%. And it's not just selling 80%. The 80% sold at a profit which is 2.5x the annual CTC FY24 of the CEO. And that's what really begs the question, that if over 100 crore rupees worth of stock has been sold in a matter of maybe a month, which is June 2024, thereafter there's been business weakness, and there's also been a misreporting or not reporting altogether a transaction which is sizable, which is 2.5% nearly of the net worth of the bank. Maybe they didn't know the quantum back then, but not reporting it altogether on a day, and not just for 1 quarter, for 2 consecutive quarters on con calls, not reporting it, and at a time when you're guiding that the second half of the year is going to be stronger than the first half, when you know that there is this transaction which has happened, just begs the question as to is this at its very crux something which the management has done in full wisdom of what they were aware about, and therefore clearly I'm not surprised that SEBI will investigate this, because it's just so blatantly obvious given the timelines and the manner in which the commentary which is now coming through just seems to suggest.
You know, we saw IndusInd Bank yesterday even firefighting the fallout of this discrepancy, saying that it has enough reserves, saying that it has enough capital to cover for it, of course. But the fact still remains that when, you know, NDTV Profit consistently reached out to them to come and make a comment regarding their knowledge or lack thereof, or whatever the claims are, they refused to do so. And there has been a silence on that front.
There's not just been a silence. I'm not even sure that if they had come out and spoken, how much of that commentary is believable. Because, and it's not just about the fact that they have investor support or they have promoter support. It's about the 20,000 crore worth of market cap which is wiped this week. And when you're looking at it, maybe over a longer period of time, it's 60% which the investor has lost from the point of time when the CEO and deputy CEO have liquidated their holdings. And really that essentially begs the question that what about the investor wealth wiped? What about the average investor who's invested at 1.5, 1.6 times price to book, which is not a very expensive proposition based on commentary given by the company, and now the stock is sitting at 0.7 times price to book just due to absolute absolutely not clearly giving full information and full disclosure to the market.
Absolutely, Harsh. Thank you so much for those updates, and thank you, Shrimi, for bringing us that very crucial aspect right now. The SEBI now taking notice of IndusInd's losses and now will be investigating it for themselves. Let's also remember, this is also at a time when the RBI is also looking into the entire issue.